Hi, this is Eddie Deason. You're listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall. I was Mandark in Dexter's laboratory. Ha 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 ha.
You are listening to Breaking the Fourth Wall on Realm of the Mist Entertainment. Hey, what's up, guys? We are back for another Breaking the Fourth Wall podcast, and this one, even though it's a one-shot, this one's kind of breaking news. It's within today, so it's breaking news for us. And it is dealing with the Megadeth statement released by Dave Mustaine that Dave, I always screw up his name, Ellefson, co-founder, longtime bassist of the band Megadeth, has been released from the band. This statement being released along with the fact that Megadeth has been working on a new album to release this year. All over the allegations, all over the allegations of internet nudity and possible child endangerment, which we'll go into detail about. Possible child, I don't want to even use endangerment. Let's use exposure. Child exposure by Mr. Ellefson. This one's a tangle web that we got to weave, Colin. Why don't you go ahead and tell me what you think about this thus far, and we'll go into detail.
Well, the subject at hand is David apparently has been corresponding with a girl that's 19 years old now, and she has been friends with him since she was 17, and their correspondence at some point had some video where he had no shirt, looked like he didn't have any pants on, and it looked like he was flailing genitalia or doing something down below the waist. On top of that, then there's other chat that people have discovered of his between the two of them, asking him to deny, or asking the girl to deny everything. And it's just like things are adding up. Like, is there some inappropriate stuff going on here? And apparently it's serious enough to where Megadeth is letting him go. So that's pretty serious in my book.
Well, Dave Mustaine is a very religious person, and the band has always wanted to keep a very utmost respectable persona. So I think that that's the road that he's always been on, and he will always be on.
Well, see, I'll agree with that. As a business owner, I get Dave's reaction, Mustaine's reaction to everything going on. Because when this first came into light, Megadeth was saying, we're watching this very closely. We're not going to put any jump to any conclusions or prejudgments beforehand, but we are, understand we are watching this very closely and taking this very seriously. And then not even a couple weeks later, as a business owner, I get it. You don't want anything that that embarrasses the business, the company, the product. And stuff like this is an embarrassment. So from that aspect, before we go into any more details about how Dave Mustaine can at times be a contemptuous ass, and other times where he has a habit of being very control freakish, we are going to obviously jump to that side of the conversation as well. But overall factors, I get what Megadeth did here, or at least what Dave Mustaine, because he's all that's left of Megadeth. What Dave Mustaine is doing here, he's protecting the product, he's protecting the name, by turning around and finally turning around saying, and, with everything coming out to light, whether it's even true or not anymore, Dave Ellefson is no longer a part of the company, the product, the brand, because of the fact that it's too much to be able to ignore.
Okay, so
Yeah.
when is it crossing the line? Because for me, I don't mind knowing that people are human. I don't mind seeing the good, the bad, and the ugly about people, because to me, they're just people. So why would they have to be to a higher standard than anyone else? And when does it actually cross that line?
Well, that's some of the things that we're going to be discussing, because from what I understand of what I've read and what I've seen and what I've talked about thus far, and Colin will jump in with some of the extra shit he dug out, but the way I understood it is it was a consensual conversation between two adults. I don't care about the age gap. They're still adults and consented, and that this video chat happened between the two of them. To me, equating that is like, for argument's sake, for the metaphor here, it's like me sending a dick pic to Serenity that she consented to. It was sent to her, end of topic and conversation. If that gets leaked out, that's not my fault. I'm not feeding that picture to anybody who has a computer or a phone, especially anybody of underage consent. Neither is Serenity sending that out to anybody else. So if this got leaked somehow, I can't necessarily point the finger at David and going, you were wrong. He was acting human. You do what humans do. He's wrong for cheating on his wife. He's wrong for doing the video chat with a girl that was not his wife. Those are wrong. But that's not necessarily so wrong as to warrant.
Just get it out there that she was 17 years old when they met. So that would be considered underage.
Well, that depends. What state is she in? Some states 17 is consensual age.
Well, I don't know. Isn't there a federal law?
Yeah, for under 16. Because there is such a gap between states where they consider 16 to 18 being consensual age.
So then she would be an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a gray area, because some people are like, well, my daughter is 16 and I kind of look the other way about her being promiscuous or whatever. And some people are like, no, my daughter's my daughter and she's going to stay that way till she's 18 years old and I don't want no boy going near her.
Well,
there's different.
I get it. I get bile in my throat just saying that she was 17 and a 50-year-old was fucking, having video sexual thing. I get vile in my throat. I'm a father of a young girl. I wouldn't want a 50-year-old hitting on my 17-year-old daughter either. But
Right.
If I'm in a state where that's consensual, there's not really much I could say about it.
Right, and you look back in history, and there were all kinds of relationships that were set up, and they were arranged by the father, and the girl would marry someone who was 10 to 20 years older than them because they were older, responsible, and they knew they would take care of their daughter, and that's just how it worked. It doesn't happen like that today, really, that much, but yeah, the age difference didn't mean as much back then in history.
But now you brought in something that kind of changes the narrative that I was talking about here, Colin. You had brought up the fact that there has been more video footage or more audio footage of this video or these videos, where David is apparently begging the 17-year-old recipient to deny that this video exists, or at least deny that it was not consensual, or what was that all about? That second half that you were bringing in before we started recording.
Yeah. There's pictures out there on a certain guy's YouTube channel where he did some digging around and found some of the actual text messaging pics that were and Snap. They screenshotted these things, and it's pictures of conversation where he himself, Ellefson, was talking to the young girl and said, "Oh, just deny all this, blah blah blah," kind of like, "Just don't worry about it. It looks more serious than it really is," But telling him to deny it, it's like, okay, well, it's kind of a little too late for that. Whatever you did, you want to hide it now. That sucks. It looks kind of bad for him.
Yeah, in my mind, that's a red flag. I mean, in the first statement where it's like it looks more serious than it really is, I would probably have bought that. If two consensual adults in a state or a city that considers 17 consensual, okay,
Well,
you're taking things out of context. It's not that bad. But sitting there trying to hide it and telling the other person, deny,
Right.
that's where you start having questions of like, you knew you were doing wrong.
Right,
I
right.
think it was a situation where once it was leaked, she kind of panicked and was like, how am I going to keep my job? How am I going to stay in school? How am I going to do all these things in her life? And she was scared. And, you know, we don't know the context of these texts. We don't know the entire conversation. But if I had a friend who was scared and there was no real proof out there, I'd say the same thing. You know, hey, don't worry about it. It'll be gone in a week. Just brush under the carpet.
Yeah,
You
but you're
know,
not saying
like,
deny. You're just saying don't worry about it. Let it run its course. There's a big difference between that and deny this.
I
Right.
don't know if
Yeah.
that word was exactly used, unless it was
It was
a
in
message that
screenshot.
I haven't seen. Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah.
I might not have seen that one, but what I've read, it was more him trying to calm her down.
Well, yeah, yeah, I see that too. But for him to ask her to deny it at all, it's kind of like, but then she didn't. I mean, there is screenshots of her conversation, posting or whatever, saying that no, it was consensual. I was never underage at the time when it happened.
On his
Um,
Instagram, he made a statement, and he also referred to her and said, "Look at her statement too. We were both adults. It wasn't good what I did. He's not saying what he did was right.
Right.
He's just saying that it's not a situation where he was grooming anyone. It's not a situation where he's a pedophile and she was underage or severely underage or 12 years old or something." And he referred back to her saying, look, her statement is the same as mine. We were consenting adults. This happened. Now
right,
get over it. I mean,
Well,
it's none of our
right.
business.
I think that leads back to one of the major questions I wanted to ask on this show. With everything being there, and again, 50-year-old hitting on a 17, 18-year-old video chat, sharing your old man balls and stuff like that. Creepy, yes. But illegal and harmful, not really. It's I hate to say it this way, but it's kind of a gray area depending on where you live. Overall, is this an overreaction from Megadeth to let him go with this? You get
Yeah. What can you say? I mean, you can't blame Dave for not wanting his band to be associated with someone who's involved in pedophilia at all or anything to that type of nature.
right.
So of course his natural reaction is like, nope, we're not going to have any of that in our group. Sorry, man, you're out. Good luck.
What about you? I mean, you're friends with some former members. I'm not throwing any names or anything else, but I mean, you kind of know the track record of this band. Is this a terrible thing that the one of the two mainstays is gone and wasn't an overreaction?
Well, I think that it's a tragedy, for one. I think that he did kind of jump the gun to let him go so quickly, but it's Dave Mustaine's band. He's definitely a control freak. He wants everything to be by the book, A, B, C, and D. And if you're interfering in D, then you're not going to get to A.
Right. See, I'm kind of the same way, and here's my problem. Here's what I'm afraid of. Again, and I'm not coloring my own personal viewpoints on this. I'm being as impartial as I can. But thinking about the future, like you had mentioned about this poor girl freaking out, worried about her job, worried about like her future and stuff like that because of this video releasing. Megadeth is one of the big four. Like this is one of those bands that thrash metal and the subsequent subgenres that have spawned from thrash metal is directly responsible from this band, one of four that kind of pushed that way forward into today's society from the 80s. What the hell is David gonna do? Is he gonna be able to join another band or start another band and not have this color what's left of his career? To
I
me,
don't
that
know.
seems extremely harsh for as minor of an infraction as this is. And I'm not diminishing anybody's pain in this. But what I'm saying is that there have been far worse things that have happened in and outside the music community, in and outside the internet community, that this is kind of a very small thing to destroy a man's career.
Maybe he overreacted by letting him go like that. But then again, he's the one with the creative genius behind Megadeth. It's his band, really. And so if he feels strongly that he doesn't want that involvement or that attached to the name of his band, well, you really, I can't blame him. At the same time, I do feel bad for the other guy because maybe it was all innocent. Maybe everything was on the up and up. And then if they did have any promiscuous activities on the internet or back and forth on phones and stuff, well, maybe it was after she was 18. All fine and good. But doing that and then just sharing it with people that you shouldn't be is where the no-no is. And, you'd think that they would be smarter than that, honestly, if they're going to play games, right?
Well, no, I agree, but again, with the same point. Okay, it's happened. He's out of Megadeth, one of the band that he was one of the founding members of. A 25 plus year legendary group. Understand what Dave Mustaine did, but I'll paint it to you in this light because it's no secret that I'm a musician. Our anonymous girl, that I'm a musician. Like, how much will this tarnish David's career going forward? Like, will he be able to start a new band? Will musicians like myself want to work with him knowing that he has this cloud now pretty much over his head?
Well, see, you can look at it two different ways. In a way, like you're saying, like maybe it'll be a detriment. People will be turned off that want to work with him or something. I could see how that could possibly happen.
Not even the musicians that he may or may not be able to work with, but what about fans? Some fans be like, fuck it, I don't care, it's rock and roll, just like they kind of were with Michael Jackson with those allegations. But then there's other people that'll be like, that guy's a fucking baby raper. I will never listen to or buy anything he's on again.
Right. It's two ends of the same stick.
Right.
There's a two-edged sword there. So you got to look at it at that point, and yeah, and then what's it going to do to his self-esteem now to even want to do anything after this? It's probably pretty crushing to him, the whole situation.
Self-esteem aside, though, I got to imagine somebody who's been in a mega band for 25 years, 25 plus years. Let's be honest. Like, what else do you do with your life? Like, you're out of Megadeth. I don't see him going and opening a bait and tackle shop. He's a musician. That's what he does. You know what I mean? So, like, how will this affect his career moving forward?
Yeah. Well, it could work, like you say, as a detriment, or every now and then some crazy shit pops up about people, and it just don't matter. Like all the crazy shit we always heard about Marilyn Manson. All right, maybe some of it was true. At the point, he wasn't being fake. He was acting out exactly the kind of person he was. And if he, acted out some other things and people were offended years later, well, whatever. But all that crazy talk about him, when I was younger and growing up and hearing about Marilyn Manson's antics and the shit he did on stage and what really was going on, whisper, it might have been going on behind closed doors with that weirdo. I tell you what, when I hear it, it makes me interested, right?
Mm-hmm.
And his motto was, hey, at least they're talking about me, right?
Yeah, that's what shock rock was about, was, if the music don't get you, the stories will.
Right, yeah. And it's like you get so interested in what you've heard, like, well, I got to hear what this guy's music sounds like, right? I mean, that's how it works sometimes. So maybe this will draw more people to say, hey, he's kind of a weird fucking sexual person, too. Okay, well, maybe we'll check out his new original stuff, his solo stuff. Or his next project. See what he's really about. Who knows? Maybe it'll flip that coin and work that way for him. There's no way you can tell. But it definitely is unexpected in my mind. I never dreamed that I would hear something like this going on with some member of Megadeth.
No, especially not David Ellefson. Any interview or conversation I've ever seen of him, and people who have talked to him or spoken to him, he's always seemed like a very down-to-earth, very humble guy. Which is
That's actually how I think of him. When I think of him, I think of a class act, like on stage and off, utmost respect for the way that he carries himself. So I'm in shock that it's not like his personality to do this.
But at the same time, let's be fair. What's the old additive? It's always the quiet ones.
Yeah, that's what they say sometimes, huh?
You know, and again, I hate. I'll be honest with you. Like this, I'm shocked with this. I'm bothered by this. But at the same time, I think the biggest thing that I hate about this is the fact that I don't want this guy to have his life or career ruined. Which is funny because I'm a person who can't stand people who are child molesters or child porn addicts or whatever. I can't stand those types of people. Reading and seeing all that's been released thus far, I don't see that from David. So I hate the fact that this is going to destroy his career. Okay, he did something outside of his marriage that he shouldn't have done, and yes, he should be punished for that. That was wrong. But this shouldn't be a life-ending, career-ending thing for him from what I've seen thus far. And even reporting on this and saying it out loud, right now to the listeners, to you guys, I still feel like I'm kind of helping contribute to demonizing this guy for something that, unless something more comes out later, it really just kind of, as you had stated earlier, making a human mistake.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, hey, you know what? Does anybody really care what the bass player of Megadeth is doing behind closed doors or on camera to somebody else on their phone or their computer?
Does anybody ever care about what the bass player's doing?
Yeah, nobody fucking cares. I mean, everybody's like, just give me free unemployment money. Nobody gives a shit, right? I mean, when it boils down to it, I mean, most people are just like, oh, this figures, that figures, all kinds of weird shit happens. It's kind of like the way the business is. Anytime you look at people that are in movies or big in music, sometimes there ends up being an element of some weird shit.
Well, speaking of,
I have a headline for you.
Go ahead.
Rockstar cheats on his wife.
In other news, water wet.
Well, I'm just saying, if he did have an inappropriate relationship with this girl after she was 18, so what? I mean, he gets lonely on tour. I know plenty of musicians that have probably a lot more inappropriate things going on video than he did, and they're still getting on. They're still getting by. They're still doing their thing. I don't think that this is something that isn't done probably by most of the musicians that go on tour.
Well, one of the biggest, weirdest thing I take from this, and I got this from Rockfeed, so that's the source, is that Megadeth, after Dave released that statement, is already in search of a new bassist, so that way they're ready for the tour with the new album in 2021. And rumor has it, so take it as a grain of salt, but rumor has it in the forefront, the leading to replace David Ellefson, is Jason fucking Newsted.
What? Are you shitting me?
I shit you not. This is being reported that he's not in yet, but it's looking like it's going to be Jason Newsted, another ex-Metallica member, joining Megadeth.
Wow, is the whole world gone crazy? Well, how do you think James and Kurt and Lars are going to feel about that?
I don't think James and Lars are give a shit. And Kurt, well, my opinion of Kurt's personality is, I don't even think Kurt knows what day it is. He is such a weird person. Good guitarist, just a weird person. But I mean, like I found that ironic that, if they are going to go with Jason, like, you got two ex-Metallica members in Megadeth. How weird is that?
Yeah, it's the same style of music.
I think the only way it would have been weirder is instead of Jason Newsted, like Dave Mustaine turned around and looked up old Ron McGovern for bass. You know, the original bassist of Metallica when they first formed the band. That'd be a Pete Best moment, wouldn't it?
Oh.
Oh Jesus! Before they found Cliff Burton. Yeah, but that was weird. But speaking of weird, the other thing is that the press release that we're talking about, that Dave Mustaine released, Colin, I'm going to go back to you because you found the full statement and found out that press release that everybody's been shooting around that kind of prompted this whole entire conversation was only a paragraph to something far darker.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have it up and you want to read it, or if I can find where you shared it and read it myself. I don't care which.
Yeah,
but
I shared it in the chat there. I don't have my laptop available to it.
That's fine. I'll well, let's get your guys' opinions of it before I read it because I got to find it. So while I'm looking for it, you guys read this thing. What did you guys think?
Well, I
on
see
which
it
part?
Actually, I've got it here. I'll reread it to you guys, and then we'll get your impressions here. This was released by Dave Mustaine, stating that David has been having an affair with a 19-year-old girl who he met when she was 17 years old. I have 2 videos of proof. A video he sent to her where he's jacking off his disgusting pedo dick, and another one where the girl and David are video calling and he calls her sweetie and blows a kiss at her. And that poor girl was bragging about the affair and the nude video, talked about it to her friend, got it through my friend, and my friend told me, and that's how I found out. I hope that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it well. This is Dave Mustaine. Yeah. But yeah, she thinks it's okay and treats it as a good thing. It's so clear that she's getting manipulated, traumatized, and groomed by this disgusting monster. David is in his fucking 50s, and she was 17 and currently 19. Repulsive. And David is married. He has been married to Julie for 28 years. Not only is he a pedo, but also a cheater. If we have enough people spreading this around, we might help the girl get out of the relationship and also have his wife know about this betrayal. And then eventually the police or FBI would know about David and that video. This is some dark stuff. Oh, and also today I heard he sends unsolicited dick pics to fans, and he also flirts with the young ones. I don't have a particular problem with him, quote unquote, flirting with fans. And the dick pics, yes. Flirting, quote unquote, with underage fans, of course, I don't have much of a opinion on, because of the fact that if he's in a professional atmosphere, rock atmosphere, you're supposed to make the girls swoon. That's what sells records and merchandise and posters. You know?
Well, it's kind of expected that you might have a 17 to 19-year-old girl have a crush on you.
Well, I'm not talking about the video. I'm talking about like at a show. If Dave's being a little flirtatious with like a 16-year-old girl, but not touching, not acting, not grooming, not soliciting, but really just playing the role to get her to want to fucking run home and buy a fucking Megadeth poster, well, that's kind of the game, isn't it?
Well, sure, but
they're not. But they're like stadium tours, like. It's not like you could just go and the band's there, and if they see you, you go backstage and you meet them. I mean, this isn't like a groupie situation. I mean, they would have to have VIP tickets, or they would have to get to be in front of the band and want to be in front of the band. It's not like he's picking them out of the crowd. He doesn't even see the crowd unless he's up on stage. I mean...
Right. They're even doing social distancing. Although I didn't hear about masks.
Well, that's exactly my point. I'm thinking about even pre-coronavirus. If David was like on the Ozfest tour, if Megadeth was on the Ozfest tour, where bands after they performed on stage would walk around in the crowd or around the stages and stuff like that, and just kind of meet and greet on their own. Again, if he's not inappropriately touching or passing off, phone numbers or something like that, and he's just being extra friendly. That's a promotional thing. A lot of bands do that.
Right, but there was another screenshot there of the girl in question claiming that she was of age. She was over 18 at the time, and it was consensual. They are
and that she initiated it.
And she initiated.
In her comment, in her release, she said that she initiated it.
Correct. Which kind of changes the whole role of everything and puts the blame on her. Like, you should have known he's married. What are you doing dating him?
But at the same time, it doesn't change the dynamic in the role. Dave's still at fault. Like, David's still at fault. If she initiated it and was trying to get him to act promiscuously against his marriage, he still has the right to say no.
Right.
He didn't. So in that aspect, he's still at fault. But this being a wrong action between two consenting adults comes into question. If one, she was adult and able to make a clear consension on her own, and two, to the fact that she's the one who initiated it. It takes away the fact that this guy was creeping and acting in a way that he shouldn't. The result, he still did something he shouldn't have done, but not. There's no criminality here, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's what I'm seeing.
I talked to several touring musicians, and I could only think of maybe a handful of them that haven't tried to get sexual in some way. I mean, whether it be they're drunk after a show and I happen to be the one that they're speaking to and they, try to get a little bit flirty or whatever. Like, it's up to the other person to say no. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he wasn't the one who initiated it and was just being friendly and she initiated the actual sexual relationship brings my respect for him up even higher. Just because I know how many of them get lonely and try to make everything inappropriate.
Well, I mean, that's part of being a rock and roll musician. Again, forget which subgenre we're talking about here. It's all rock and roll. At the end of the day, that was always the up-and-coming rock musician's dream, is to trash hotels and screw different girls in different cities. And blah. I mean, that was always the quintessential rock star lifestyle. How can we hate somebody for doing that now just because he's 50?
Well, yeah. It's not that you blame him. He's doing his job. He's a musician. He's going out and doing a job, playing the shows, and mooning the crowd, and being the cool guy. And but honestly, Chris, between you and I, if one of us was in his position, being the bass player for Megadeth, would you have let this happen?
No, but I have a different mentality than maybe this guy. I would consider myself so blessed to be part of one of the big four, even if I am just a bassist. And especially with something like Megadeth, where I'm the only stable member next to Dave Mustaine himself. I would never do anything to jeopardize that.
Right.
But I'm a different mentality. You know what I mean? And if you would have asked me 20 years ago where I was kind of, dreaming of the rock star lifestyle 20, 25 years ago, then maybe my answer would be different. But as a 44-year-old divorced man with 3 kids, if I was lucky enough to be in that position, I would never do anything to jeopardize it. But that's just me.
But how did he know that this would jeopardize it? If it's not completely inappropriate and it was something that built over time to be a sexual relationship with somebody he knew, he had trust in her. It wasn't like they met and started this immediately. This is something that built up over time. It was a relationship.
Right. It's like, okay, she's old enough and she can do what she wants. She's over 18, fine, do whatever the hell she wants with whoever she wants. But it doesn't take away like the what is it, the common law rule they say.
Right.
Half your age plus 7. So if you're 40, half your age would be 20. And if you add 7, you shouldn't date anybody younger than 27. That's how
You
that
know, I
works.
do have to say nobody younger than your kids, and this girl was younger than both his kids.
Well, I
Right.
mean, again, do we have to dash him because he was, a 50-year-old was talking to an 18-year-old? Does anybody remember Anna Nicole Smith and marrying a fucking 90-year-old man, and we weren't allowed to fucking talk about the fact that she's gold digging for him after he dies? She did not marry him for love or whatever else. I mean, I know it's two completely separate scenarios, but at the same time, it's like, as long as it's legal, who fucking cares how old who is? You know what I mean? Like, if she's, I hate this, she's 17, she's 19, whatever. If she was 18 when David hooked up with her, and even though it's wrong that he was cheating on his wife, he should have fucking just, left his wife or divorced his wife before getting involved with somebody else or letting it get to the point of involvement. That notwithstanding, who is anybody to judge the fact that a 50-year-old man and an 18-year-old girl fell in love with each other? They're both consenting adults. They could do whatever the fuck they want.
Right. Well, we come back to the whole world's full of snowflakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess if it can happen, obviously they are attracted to each other. That's great. I mean, there are attributes that any man in this world is going to look at a woman and say, those are beautiful female attributes, and I want to hook up. You know, and whether
But
they're
they
not,
never physically hooked up.
Right.
They
or
never
digital.
physically did anything. So does this mean
Right.
that I mean, this is kind of not in the conversation, but should the laws of what is considered to be legal change because it's online and through video and it's not actually physically doing anything?
Well, see that's
Well, the
that's
whole thing
that's
is
where we
loose
get
fire.
back into what we were talking about here. Like you said, there's been no physical contact. There has not been anything that these two have done physically to each other. It's all been online, which means
Right.
outside of the fact of the questioning of whether or not when she was quote unquote 17, if she was 17 when they started doing their online correspondence, of whether or not this was, inappropriate behavior to a minor, which again depends on the city, the state, and their statutes. Outside of that, there is nothing here that would warrant or promote anything criminally. He did not physically do anything to his wife or against his wife in this. He did not touch inappropriately a minor. There's nothing here for that. The only argument I would say right now that David would have to handle is the moral correspondence between him and Dave Mustaine. As you stated, Mustaine is very religious, so that obviously goes against his moral compass. But also, David would have to face the consequences of his actions with his wife and how she views the whole affair. But beyond that, I don't think there's anything here to besmirch Dave Ellefson's career or name in any way, shape, or form. Now, again, a week from now, something could come out that he was, sending, lollipop representations of his penis to 14-year-old girls and totally detracts what I'm saying right now. What I'm saying is at this moment, on this date, on May 24th, 2021, with everything presented right now, this man has not done anything that the public should be ostracizing him for. And definitely nothing that that the legal system should be ostracizing him for. Would that be
I definitely, yeah. I think that this is a defamation lawsuit. I mean, if I were David Ellefson, I would come after the person who leaked the video because it's not really anything illegal. She was of age. He might have been doing inappropriate things, but What's the difference between that and like OnlyFans? How many people are on OnlyFans doing the same thing?
Oh, and that's definitely a creepier environment because all the 17, 18, 19-year-old girls that are flashing their bits and all that for tips. Most of their clientele are people older than me.
Right. Well, for instance, I've got friends that are in their 20s, right? And there's some of them that I find attractive, and some of them think, yeah, I wouldn't mind hooking up with her. She's attractive. I could handle her. She looks my speed or whatever, right? Um, but I think of it like, okay, the common rule they say is, half your age plus 7, right? So that puts me at 29-year-old. So I look around and I'm okay with that because I don't want to date someone who's 21. I got to teach them everything, you know. But this guy obviously is going outside the boundaries of that, which is like, well, to each their own, I guess. I mean, in Mississippi and other weird places like that, maybe Kentucky or and other parts of the world,
That's right.
they
Keep
date.
offending some of our listeners down south. Go ahead. No. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Sid.
yeah, I try not to offend any of you guys, but there are occasions where sometimes people date their cousins and stuff, and they're all underage, you know. Um, so yeah, it depends. It's like different strokes for different folks, I guess, in that manner.
Well, you're not.
Um,
You're definitely not wrong in that. Okay, somebody like you or somebody like me may not be interested in looking at going so young or that young when we're courting for a relationship or even a fuck friend. And quite honestly, if somebody our ages or Dave's ages is looking at people who are not even 21 yet, for example, you're not looking at them because of their intelligence. You're not looking at them because of you want something long term. You're looking at the physical attributes of a young girl that you find attractive, and that's it. So really, the substance argument is not there to begin with. But most people our ages, we're done with the immaturity of the younger girls. We'd rather deal with people our own ages, regardless of whether that girl our age may have more wrinkles now than her 20-year-old counterpart, or her boobs sag a little more than an 18-year-old. We don't care because we're looking for something more than just a flash in the pan, and I think that's what this is. I think David acted inappropriately with a girl. I think he was just having fun with somebody who was young and attractive, and when she figured out that it was never going to lead to more than that is when she leaked it. How else does this video get out?
yeah, you're onto it there. I think you nailed it.
I think she got scorned that Dave wasn't going to fucking make her a housewife who gets to live off of his career, and turned around and wanted to fuck him over. I think that's all this is.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt it for a moment because that's how some people are.
Would you say I'm wrong in that assessment there, an anonymous angry girl?
I don't know. Women nowadays with the Me Too movement and everything, yeah, it could have been leaked by her. It could have been leaked by her boyfriend. I mean, we don't know what her situation is either. Either way, it got out due to her actions. She's the one who would have had to send it to her friends or show it to people in order for anyone else to have gotten it other than her. So it's her fault either way. Whether she did it physically or not, she released it by letting anyone see that video.
Right. Because
keep it to yourself.
Even if it was consensual between the two of them, and yeah, obviously David didn't leak this out. He didn't send this out to people because it could ruin his career, as it's consequently doing right now. So even if the girl didn't leak it intentionally, maybe she turned around and sent it to her best friends. Like, look, it's Dave Ellefson from Megadeth and his penis. Take a look, and she's the one that fucking leaks it out to the general public. Now all of a sudden it's in the hands of people that it shouldn't be. It's still her fault.
Totally her fault.
It's still her fault that even in trust, she sent it to her best friend who thought she could trust. No, the only two people that should have ever seen that video is her and David.
I've never heard anything else about Dave's texting or videos
Not
until
until now.
now.
Yeah, not until now.
So he didn't do it. He didn't leak on his own shit, did he?
But any publicity is good publicity.
Unless it costs you a
Yeah.
25 plus year career in a mega group.
Well, it's still publicity.
Like, would we be having this conversation if some up and coming band right now had the same scenario happen and they fired their bassist? No, we wouldn't give a shit. This is the basis of fucking Megadeth. Was. You know what I mean? If my old bassist in my last band had this exact same scenario going on, and I fired him from my band, do you think the general public would give a fuck? No.
No.
No, not at all. But this is fucking Megadeth. This is going to be a big deal and hurt David so much because of how much Megadeth means to the music and rock community.
Right. And I think Dave Mustaine's response is probably heavy weighted with the fact that he's got to ask himself, what are the fans going to expect of me?
I don't even think it's that. From what I read of that and his responses, I don't even think Dave's thinking about the fan base, because most of them, I don't know. I'll go so far to say most of the Megadeth fan base probably wouldn't give a shit who David's fucking, or not fucking.
Right. Right.
I think it's more of Dave Mustaine's moral compass, as was stated earlier. Dave Mustaine's a very religious person. This probably hit a moral nerve with him.
Right. He's embarrassed him. He's like, thanks, Dave. Thanks, Ellefson. Yeah, thanks for the embarrassment. Yeah, you can play with someone else, I guess.
Pretty much. You embarrassed our brand.
Yeah.
I no longer can work with you.
Right.
Do you think he sat there and said, what would Gene Simmons do?
Maybe. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
But then again, Gene Simmons would be like, what, you only did it with one? Today?
Right? I mean, look at Kiss.
Right.
They're like superstars above and beyond what 90% of the popular bands ever will be. And sex, drugs, and rock and roll is what they stand for.
Especially Gene Simmons. Gene Simmons is the rock and roll equivalent of Ron Jeremy in his sexual exploits through the years with Kiss.
Oh my God, that's a visual I never want to have again. Please don't repeat that.
Well, you can only imagine what type of sexual exploits all of these big, huge rockers have, right? So whatever he's been introduced to over the years, I'm sure there's more than one occasion where there's something that happened outside of his marital relationship.
I'm sure
that would happen in that position, right?
I'm sure.
Do you think that Dave Mustaine hasn't ever smoked pot, got drunk, blacked out, and fucked some hooker? I mean,
You answered your own question. It's Dave Mustaine, the guy who was so drunk he got kicked out of Metallica. Metallica kicked him out for drinking too much. Think about that statement.
Right. So they all do this. They all have this lifestyle that they maintain. And there's, I'm sure, plenty times when the girl might have been 17, might have been 18, right? Because their position and the way the girls look and dress today, and the makeup and everything, they could pass for 21, and they're only 17.
Hey, look, during the decade of
decadence...
You
have a good point. He might not have known how old she is.
Well,
he did look a little bit older than me. No, I'm kidding.
No, but you do have a point, and you think back to the decade of decadence and the heyday of the groupies. Well, hell, even before the decade of decadence, which is the 80s for all you young fuckers out there, where rock and roll was very prevalent on, taking groupies back and doing whatever to the tour bus or whatever else. I'm pretty sure they weren't checking IDs even back then, but I mean, this goes all the way back to the 60s, the free love movement, where I don't think anybody in the 60s even gave a fuck. As long as you looked like you were old enough, that's all that mattered. I'm not excusing any pedophilia or underage molestations in any way, but let's be real. This is a rock and roll lifestyle. Who's surprised by this?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I could see how it could happen. I could see where the things are, if he's lonely, things are working out in his marital life very well. Maybe he's fighting with his wife or something, or they're on the rocks or something. You know.
Or maybe he's just a
But
hornball.
yeah, maybe he's just a horn dog. Well, as long as she was overage, uh, uh, well, whatever, dude. I don't know.
That's it. As long as it's verifiable that she was legal, or at least considered legal, again with that gray area of 17, as long as she was considered legal age of consent, then the rest of this is between David and his wife, or soon to be ex-wife, I would imagine. Beyond that, this is a non-issue, and I don't think it should have cost him his career in Megadeth.
I completely agree. I think that he should continue on, whether it be create a new band or just do, guitar sessions and jam out for Berklee School of Music or even Guitar Center. I don't think that this is the downfall of him, because what he did isn't illegal.
But it's kind of being treated as if it is right now by of course, the court of public opinion.
But that's because the headlines that they're putting out there are completely misleading. They're putting it out there saying that he's grooming a minor. Can you explain to me what part of this is grooming a minor?
Well, see, again, we're going back to the ages. If he was grooming a minor, I wouldn't consider, even if that was his intention, I wouldn't consider a 17-year-old somebody you groom to child molestation and pornography. Now, if we were talking, like, say, for the sake of argument, a 12-year-old, yeah, absolutely, that's grooming. But a 17-year-old, sexually, they've already figured out who they are.
No, I believe she said in her statement that there was no grooming of any kind. It was all her. It wasn't
right.
He was trying to enact anything or trying to push it or anything. It was her initiating.
Right, but I'm meaning in general. In general, if somebody's trying to change a person into their way of sexual thinking, i.e. grooming, a 17-year-old guy or girl pretty much knows what they're into as it is. I don't really see the term grooming coming into play there. Creepy? Sure. Inappropriate? Sure. Grooming? No.
The media is spinning it definitely in favor of the people who are part of the movement that want to oust Hollywood and change the way things work. They're just doing it to the wrong person right now.
Well, that's it. He's kind of in the court of public opinion right now. He's being treated exactly like fucking Jeffrey Epstein, and that is wrong thinking. Because even if what he did was inappropriate and wrong, which I'm not saying it's not, he cheated on his wife and was going after somebody who was old enough to be his daughter. But this is a completely different scenario from somebody like Jeffrey Epstein, who was looking for 14-year-old little boys to pass off to all his friends. This is a completely different scenario. And I don't think Dave should be put in the same group as somebody like that.
It angers me that he is, and that's what the headlines are leading with.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, they want to sell their product. They want to get their name, their brand. They're like, oh yeah, come check this out, yeah, and they want to attract attention from it. That usually does well with headlines.
It made me click.
Yeah, sure.
Well, and that's exactly it. I think the whole entire point of this episode, this video that we're making, or audio, if you're depending on how you're listening, right now is trying to find the fact from fiction about it, which I believe we did when we were talking about everything and breaking everything down and the sources that it came from, like Livewire or Newsfeed or whatever the case may be. That was the first purpose of this video. But the second purpose of this video, I think, was very simply none of this really matters in the long run to our own personal lives, whether off your fandom of David Ellefson or your fandom of Megadeth. It sucks that David is no longer part of Megadeth. I do think Dave Mustaine kind of jumped the gun on this instead of letting it play out. But it's not my band to say that that was a good decision or not. In the end of the day, I'm looking forward to the new Megadeth album, and by the end of the day, I'm hoping to hear, not the end of today, but the end of the day, period. I hope to one day hear that Dave Ellefson started a new band or joined a band, and his career is fine. At the end of the day, that's what I hope for.
Yeah, me too, honestly. I mean, it is what it is, as they say. You've got, there is that common law thought, all right, half your age plus 7 years, to be acceptable in society. But not everybody lives by that. And if she was over 18, well, whatever, she can make her own decisions to show what she wants on a camera to who she wants, and see and ask for what she wants as well. And people can do that now.
What do
So
you
it's
What do you think should be a takeaway from this? What's the moral of the story here? If we were to take this isolated incident here and put a our own moral spin on it, what do you think the lesson should be learned out of all of this? I have my opinion, but I'll get you guys' first.
well, I guess if you're married, don't be doing all kinds of weird chatty video stuff with young girls on your phone because it'll backfire on you. Actually, don't do that in general. With your girlfriend or anybody would probably get mad at you. You cause trouble. You're right.
I think that people jump to conclusions way too fast and judge people based off of the surface level instead of getting all the context of what it is. So I think that people just need to realize that everyone's human, and until you know the entire story, you probably shouldn't be jumping to defame somebody and ruin their life without knowing exactly what's going on.
Well, I've got 3 takeaways from this myself, and both of your guys' is very good as well. I've got 3 moral of the stories that I find in this particular instance. Number 1 is, regardless of whether you're acting promiscuously or not against your own relationship, guys, you need to be careful with this sharing of X-rated material between each other, because especially nowadays, you never know who's going to be able to data mine it out of your Facebook Messenger or whatever the case may be, and especially if you're in a position where it could harm your livelihood or your career or your relationship, you probably shouldn't do it. 2, be aware of the what is considered consensual within where you live, especially as a parent. If you don't want your children, a 17-year-old daughter, interacting with people in that manner on social media or video chats or something like that with older people, you have to become proactive and keep an eye on that shit. Know the laws about it, but also monitor what your child is fucking doing. I'm not excusing anybody acting inappropriately towards a child, but it can be prevented by proactively being involved as a parent. And number 3, the biggest takeaway I take from anything else of this is this is a person who has been tried and convicted by the court of public opinion. If I take nothing else away, is this would be a completely non-issue if everybody would turn around and mind their own fucking business. This isn't Keeping Up with the Kardashians. This guy has to deal with what he did with his band and with his family, and that's as far as it should have ever gone. We should never have done an episode about this, and neither should anybody else, because it's none of our fucking business. This gossip world we live in needs to stop, because what probably would have been a 20-minute conversation between Dave Mustaine and Dave Ellefson, and at best maybe a separation or divorce between Ellefson and his wife, has now blown completely out of proportion because it got leaked to the general public, and then everybody forced the issue.
Yep.
Mind your fucking business, people. Actions have consequences.
Yeah, you can't just go showing your winky to anybody.
Well, it's not just David Ellefson's consequences for his actions. It's our actions have caused this molehill to become a mountain. Our need to gossip, and I don't mean our as in you, me, this panel. I'm saying generally the public, the fans, the fucking media posts and everything else. All of this has turned what was probably a minor molehill into Mount Kilimanjaro, and it shouldn't have been that way.
Blame the
Right.
PR team. They probably planned it all.
Yep. So that's my takeaways.
That's the thing. They scrutinize everybody's life when they make a name for themselves and they get somewhere in this world. And people are jealous of that, and they watch and they have the gossip reporters and the photographers outside their houses, daily watching and seeing who they can see and what they can snap pictures of. It's paparazzi.
Yep, paparazzi. Blame the paparazzi. Fuck you, TMZ.
I blame the PR team. To be honest with you, there is no article that is being released probably ever in the past decade or so probably that hasn't been directed from a PR team towards whoever, the New York Times, People Magazine, or whatever. Everything is, quote, leaked when it's really just managed.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. A lot of times these quote unquote leaked situations in any aspect was actually a strategic strike.
Mhm. I should know. I do PR.
I'll bet you this is sad but true. The odds of it, if you look at it, are pretty bad when you think about how much publicity he would get for going and volunteering at a soup kitchen versus what we're getting out of what we've got.
Well, see, that's
now that he's out of the band, the record sales are going up because everyone now wants a copy of the album physically in hand that he was on.
We also bring up another good point too, is that Dave Ellefson was not just a bassist in Megadeth. He was also an author. He was also I believe he owns like soup kitchens or something. I've heard something about some restaurateurship shit or entrepreneurial things as well. I mean, he's got his hands in a bunch of different things. Like, this doesn't just affect Megadeth.
Well, whatever else he is involved in,
right?
I'm not sure, but I guarantee you that a negative like this will get publicity, a lot more publicity, a lot faster if it's a negative thing. News spreads fast that way.
Well, you're right, and we said bad press is still press. So yeah, okay, his book sales may rise. His people buying Megadeth albums that he was on because he's no longer with the band will rise, sure. But now I'm worried about his restaurants because that's where things will go different. I'm not going to that place. That guy diddles little girls.
But he doesn't.
But they'll look at it that way.
But that's the media putting words up on the headline that aren't even verifiable.
Right, but that's my point. Is his entertainment side of his life will probably benefit from this, but his more private life that deals with more intimate relationships with your consumers and products, like the restaurateur shit, that will probably suffer because of this.
Right. Yeah, I don't even know if he's involved in any food industries or anything. What he's up to, other than the fact that he's in Megadeth.
Well, again, I know he's a published author, and I know he's involved in like entrepreneurial things. I believe in the food industry.
Right.
Well, I mean, they have the Megadeth cruise. There's tons of things that I think that he's kind of linked to. Wouldn't he get royalties off of everything Megadeth?
I would imagine since he's a co-founder, he's going to get royalties for the rest of his life, even if he's not playing in the band. I would imagine. I don't know the contract, but I mean, he's one of the co-founders. He owns the name just as much as Dave Mustaine.
Right. Yeah, he's probably got just as much stock or just as much royalties.
So at the end of the day, he could probably just sit back and never play another note or do another book or anything else ever again and just live on the royalties of Megadeth. Not saying he
Right.
should, but I'm saying he probably could.
Yeah. I mean, if they didn't write every song together, I mean, they wrote a lot of them together.
Mm-hmm.
Enough to be able to live off that easily.
Well, again, he's one of the co-founders. He's probably one of the people that came up with the damn name. And
Right.
anybody who's done that type of work, you make sure your interest is covered. Sure, I'm no longer playing in the band, but it's still my concept as well. So every time that brand goes up, I get 10 cents.
Well,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
as I see it, I remember there was all kinds of talk about Marilyn Manson and Alice Cooper. They were weirdos. They were probably weird, provocative, sexual kind of weirdo too. You know what? I don't give a crap. They still play good music, and you can't take that away from this man. That's what I'm saying. I don't
That's
give a shit
absolutely
what
true.
Marilyn Manson did behind closed doors or who he video chatted with either. I don't give a crap. If he makes good music, good for him.
Hey, again,
I have to say, I will buy anything of his after this. This hasn't changed my opinion of him at all.
hey, if you want to lose your lead vocalist, David, if you want to start a new band, if you want to lose your lead vocalist, give me a call, man. I'll work with you. I have no problem with it. I mean, do you? Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah, I wanted to talk about this because I am a fan of Megadeth, and I've always viewed David in a positive light as a person and as a musician. It's a shame that his marriage is going to take a hit. It's a shame his reputation's going to take a hit. I don't necessarily say that I agree with the actions that he did, but I am saying that the reactions that have happened since it's come out have been way overblown, and that's why I wanted to do this episode today. At the end of the day, he's still a human being. He's still a guy who has done some incredible fucking things in the music industry, and I don't think that it's fair that he's being treated the way he's being treated right now without all the facts even being released yet.
Right, right. I would say that I still respect him as an artist. I still respect his work. I think he's a little odd duck because he wants to date below what I think is kind of acceptable for someone his age to date. But it doesn't mean I hold it against his work. He's a good musician, and I will not take that away from him whatsoever. But I would say that maybe he should think twice about, having conversations that are intimate like that with young people that maybe he didn't trust with that type of stuff.
Exactly. If I could have a conversation with David Ellefson after all this, besides throwing it out there that, yeah, I'm available, I can use a band. Besides that, I think the biggest takeaway I would tell him is, take this as a learning lesson.
I would jam with him.
Yeah, I would jam with him, but if I were to have an intimate conversation with him about the situation, I would say take it as a lesson learned. From this point forward, in this day and age, in this day and age where everything's on the internet and everything can be found, take a lesson from this. If it's something you don't want released, don't put it out there.
Yep.
That simple.
Right, and the sad truth of it is that it's bad publicity and negative things that we see and get talked about first. Like, you could be the nicest person in the world and help them do humanitarian things and give your time to local charities and whatnot, and you'll get little publicity, little, and then you do something negative, like, oh, well, he dated somebody that was 17. Whoa, big headline, and that's the sad thing about this.
That's
It
it.
shouldn't be that way.
It shouldn't be that way. Closing thoughts there, angry girl? Angry anti-feminist?
Oh, my God.
Hashtag fuck your Me Too movement? I know I'm pissing off the feminist movement, and guess what? I don't care. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would have to say stop putting your nose into people's personal business. We're all human. No matter what you do for a living and what walk of life you are, you're human, and mind your own goddamn business.
Very simple. That may even become the title of the episode. Like Dave Ellefson, mind your fucking business. Colin, closing thoughts?
I just I wish the best for him. and I wish the best for Megadeth. I think it's an odd twist about the Jason Newsted um, interjection. I haven't seen or read anything about that yet, so I'll have to comment on it later.
Well, again, the Jason Newsted thing that I got was from a video from Rockfeed. Now, Rockfeed is usually pretty knowledgeable. I have yet to have things that they have released not be correct and accurate. However, I would still take that statement of Jason Newsted replacing David with a grain of salt, at least until it's officially public.
Yeah, I've heard, honestly, that the fans are saying that he should replace him. I don't think that that's actually something that is going to happen because of the reasons why he left the band to begin with. So I doubt he would be coming back, but we'll see what happens.
Well, I don't think Jason would want to jam with Megadeth, not because he doesn't like Dave Mustaine or doesn't like Megadeth, but one of the reasons Jason was removed from Metallica is because he wanted to go a completely different direction from thrash metal. You know, he wanted to go into the more alternative things of his bands like Echo Brain and stuff like that. I don't think Jason's really interested in playing thrash. But that's a topic of conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Right.
We'll just see where it goes, I guess. But good luck to Megadeth and good luck to Ellefson. I mean, what do you do? Hey, be safer with your chats, I guess.
That's it, yeah. Time to use that incognito button, buddy. Angry anti-feminist girl. Any closing statements?
Good luck to the new hired hands that are going to be playing the music that Dave Mustaine writes because it's his band and he does everything. Nobody else can do anything. The end.
I think that's a fair assessment. Shouldn't we look at it? I've always kind of looked at it anyway. I always looked at it as Megadeth was always Dave and then session musicians for that album. It's really how I always looked at Megadeth. Yeah, because it seemed like every other album it was a new lineup. And I've watched interviews where Dave kind of broke down some of the firings, you know, where the original members were stealing equipment to buy heroin, or another one where I think it was Marty Friedman wanted to go a completely different direction musically, and then there was another one I don't remember the name of, who apparently was trying to fuck Dave's girlfriend at the time. You know what I mean? So, I mean, to be fair, if I was Dave Mustaine in those scenarios, I'd be firing people too. But but it is a weird track record with that band.
And how many soap operas have we seen over the years with different rock bands? I mean, look at Fleetwood Mac. Everybody was sleeping with everybody else, and everybody involved. It was weird.
Right. You know, so I don't know all the stories of every musician that's been in Megadeth, but if I were to go off of what the ones that Dave turned around and said, I can't necessarily blame Dave for kicking them out of the band. I get that. I don't know if I would be in the same mindset when it comes to David, but with the other ones that I've watched in interviews, sure, I get where he's coming from. You're stealing from me. You're trying to fuck my girlfriend. You gotta go. You know what I mean? I can get that. But, yeah, I've heard rumors throughout the years that Dave was very hard to work with, which is what made David even more special, that he stuck around when everybody else was gone.
Yep. Oh, yeah. So. I agree. Much respect for the man for putting up with it as long as he did.
But that's it, guys. Would love to know your opinions. Leave us a comment in the section down below. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Check out all the other podcasts that Breaking the Fourth Wall Entertainment brings you, like these daily well, not daily, but these one-shots, or our weekly show, which is where we get a little crazy and a little silly. And, of course, guys, if you prefer them in audio-only format, you can find us on Anchor, on Apple iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, or wherever quality podcasts can be heard. Just look up Breaking the Fourth Wall. Till then, guys, we will catch you on the next podcast and the next weekly show. Till then, be safe and click incognito on your chats, guys. Watch them dick pics.